Homage to the Blessed One, the worthy one, the fully enlightened Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu. I pay homage to my teacher, Lukuswami. Sadhu. In one of our previous Dhamma classes, a Dhamma friend asked about the way to practice mindfulness, to contemplate the true nature of feelings in order to control the accumulation of bad karma, and also to recognize the feelings without adding defilements, to contemplate the true nature of the feelings in terms of attaining the destruction of karma, attaining sharp mindfulness, and strengthening the practice of the spiritual path. So I selected this sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya, and we can learn a beautiful way. The Buddha explains how one has to understand, or one should understand, when experienced with feelings. There is a beautiful teaching here in this sutta. Okay, so this is a beautiful sutta with an amazing instruction from the Buddha about handling the sense faculties, handling mindfulness, handling emotions, using wisdom. So if you like to learn more about vipassana knowledge, vipassana practice, this is a powerful sutta about not only about vipassana, about samatha, about mindfulness, awareness, and everything is here. Everything is explained profoundly in this sutta, Mālukyaputtasutta. And we also can discuss things as we go along.
Mālukyaputtasutta. Then Venerable Mālukyaputta went up to the Buddha and asked him, "Sir, may the Buddha please teach me Dhamma in brief. When I have heard it, I will live alone, withdrawn, diligent, keen, and resolute." Well now, Mālukyaputta, what are we to say to the young monks when even an old man like you, elderly and senior, advanced in years, having reached the final stage of life, ask the realized one for brief advice? "Sir, even though I am an old man, elderly and senior, may the Buddha please teach me Dhamma in brief. May the Holy One please teach me in brief. Hopefully I can understand the meaning of what the Buddha says. Hopefully I can be an heir of Buddha's teaching."
Okay, so let me explain something here, Venga. Yeah, so it is said that, basically there are two types of teachings of the Buddha when the Buddha teaches the Dhamma. Sometimes Buddha would teach in brief. So the listener either has to understand in details, or somebody else, like an Arahant monk, a liberated monk, or a knowledgeable companion in the holy life should explain that in details, so that others would understand the meaning of the brief statement made by the Buddha, right? Sometimes Buddha would teach things in full details, elaborating the meaning behind each Dhamma topic. So that will be a very long discourse with lots of details of the practice. So here, this we can see that this Bhante Mālukyaputta was advanced in years, and he was not a young monk, but he still asks the Buddha, he invites the Buddha to teach the Dhamma in brief to him. So it is said that Buddha asked about that from that Bhante, oh, you're not a young monk, but you still wants me to teach the Dhamma in brief. So then what should I teach to the young monks? So that indicates that normally Buddha would teach the Dhamma to young monks in brief because they have like kind of more capacity to understand the detailed meaning of it, the elaborated meaning of it. At the same time, it is said that Buddha asked this question again in order to encourage him. It's not that Buddha didn't like it to teach him the Dhamma in brief, but Buddha was happy about it, to see the interest, to see the desire of this elderly monk to learn the Dhamma, to listen to the Dhamma. And he even had that determination and evaluation about himself that he is in a position to understand even deep Dhamma taught to him in brief. He already had some kind of determination, courage, lots of faith in the Dhamma. You know, some people when they are advanced in years, you know, when they are elderly people, they may kind of get discouraged thinking, oh, this Dhamma is very deep and now I am old. You know, it's difficult for me to understand deep things. I like to learn about simple things, you know. Do you know that there is such an opinion in the society among some people? So you can see the opposite here. Even though this Bhante was an elderly monk, he thinks like a young monk. I'm capable of realizing even this deep Dhamma, and I'm okay to listen to such a deep Dhamma, even taught to me in brief. I have that ability to understand the deep meaning of it, detailed meaning of it. So that's a very positive thing. So Buddha was happy about it. In order to encourage him further, Buddha asked this, okay, so then what should I teach to the young monks? Because I normally teach the young monks in brief, but now you come here and even though you are an elderly monk, you ask me to teach the Dhamma in brief. And then the Bhante Mālukyaputtasutta says, Bhante, even though I am an old man, elderly and senior, may the Buddha please teach me Dhamma in brief. May the Holy One please teach me Dhamma in brief. Hopefully I can understand the meaning of what the Buddha says. Hopefully I can be an heir of the Buddha's teaching. I will be able to understand and realize the Dhamma. Okay, then Buddha starts teaching the Dhamma. Renga, you want to continue?
What do you think, Mālukyaputta? Do you have any desire or greed or fondness for sights known by the eye that you haven't seen, you have never seen before, you don't see, and you don't think you would be seen? No, sir. Do you have any desire or greed or affection for sounds known by the ear, smells known by the nose, taste known by the tongue, touches known by the body, thoughts known by the mind that you haven't known, you have never known before, you don't know, and you don't think it would be known? No, sir.
Okay, again here, this is a very profound Dhamma is explained here as a question from the Blessed One to Bhante Mālukyaputtasutta. The Blessed One asks about the desire or attachment, craving for visual objects. How do they arise? Do you have any desire towards visual objects by the eye that you have not seen, you have never seen before, you don't see, and you don't think you would be seen? And Bhante answers, no, Bhante. This is very profound. So whatever desire is in our life towards visual objects, you can thoroughly investigate about that desire, and that desire is based on something we have seen in the past, or we are seeing at present, or we imagine that we are going to see this in the future. So that means in order for the desire to arise, there should be some type of contact, eye contact. And with that eye contact, if you investigate the nature of that eye contact is always formed with something we saw in the past. Or we see something at present, or we assume that we are going to see something in the future, and so it becomes our mind contact. So after we see something, it goes into our mind, and those signs and features of that visual object don't just disappear. We can recollect on those objects. That means they are somewhere in our mind. And where are they? Those memories, those signs, features, they come back to us through the mind contact. The mind contact means the union of the mind, the thought, and the mind consciousness. And then more desires about that visual object arise. But if we have not seen something, if we haven't seen any visual object, if we haven't talked about it, if nobody has talked about it, if we haven't imagined such features and signs about a visual object, then how would the desire arise regarding that object? And I think the same question is asked by the Blessed One during a Dhamma discussion with a person named Gamini, Bhadraka Gamini, and there Buddha asks about the same thing regarding his wife. And Buddha asks, now what do you think, Gamini? If something bad happens to your wife, if she gets sick, if she meets with an accident, or if she gets killed, would pain arise in you? Would you cry? Would you be sad? And he says, yes. Yes, Bhante. And you understand that it's because of your desire, craving, and attachment towards your wife? And he said, yes. And when did that arise? When did that start, that desire, that craving for your wife? And Buddha asked, didn't that arise first in your life after you saw her, or after you heard about her? And he agrees. Yes, Bhante. After I heard about her, after I saw her, then this attachment starts. If he didn't see his wife, if he didn't hear about her wife, how would desire arise towards his wife? Because he doesn't know such a person exists. So after he saw his wife, after he heard about his wife, means through the contact, eye contact, ear contact. That was the base of the desire, of the craving, of the attachment. And that is applied to everything in our life. And that profound, deep, subtle Dhamma is discussed here by the Blessed One with this Bhante Mālukyaputta. And the Bhante agrees. Yes, the Blessed One, after I have seen something, while I am seeing something, or I assume that I am going to see this in the future, then that desire will arise. Then that greed will arise. Then that fondness will arise. And then the Buddha asks about sounds. Do you have any desire or greed or affection for sounds known by the ear that you have not heard, you have never heard before, you don't hear, and you don't think you would be heard? And Bhante agrees. No, such a desire will not arise if I didn't hear about that sound, if I don't hear, if I am not going to hear about it. Yes, and same with the smells, tastes, touches, thoughts. Another Kalyanamitta to continue read.
May I?
Okay.
In that case, when it comes to things that are to be seen, heard, thought, and known, in the seen will be merely the seen. In the heard will be merely the heard. In the thought will be merely the thought. In the known will be merely the known. When this is the case, you won't be by that. When you're not by that, you won't be in that. When you're not in that, you won't be in this world or the world beyond or in between the two. Just this is the end of suffering. This is how I understand.
So this is, we have to go very slowly, we have to go little by little, because these are very profound teachings of the Buddha. Very rarely somebody would get to hear these teachings. So let's go slowly, explaining and understanding. So here, we need the Pali. There's a beautiful Dhamma explanation here. Okay, and Buddha teaches here. So now you can see all the desires, attachment, craving, clinging, all the defilements, like a stream of defilements, begins to flow into our lives through the contact. If that contact didn't take place, we cannot talk about a stream of defilements. With the union of the eye contact, means the union of eye, the visual object, and the consciousness. Ear contact means the union of ear, the sound, and the ear consciousness. Nose contact means the union of nose, smell, and the nose consciousness. Tongue contact means the union of tongue, taste, and tongue consciousness. Body contact means the union of body, the tangible or the touch, and the body consciousness. Mind contact means the union of mind, thought, and the mind consciousness. When this union happens, when these three things come together in each sense faculty, that contact is followed by a stream of defilements, because this happens based on ignorance, avidya, not knowing the Four Noble Truths, not knowing not realizing the truth of life. Remember dependent origination, avidya pacha sankhara, dependent on not knowing the Four Noble Truths, the ignorance, the sankhara comes. Sankhara pacha vijnana. With the arising of sankhara, the formations, the vijnana arises. Right? Vijnana pacha nama rupa. Dependent on consciousness, mentality and materiality arise. Nama rupa pacha salhayatanam. Dependent on mentality and materiality, I arises. Salayatana means eye. Salayatana means ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Now you can see when we open our eyes, there is ignorance in the first place. Because these six sense bases are a product of all the ignorant links of the dependent origination. Because everything starts with that ignorance, lack of true knowledge of life. So when we open our eyes, it's completely an ignorant eye, based on ignorance. When we pay attention to a sound, it's completely an ignorant ear. So what is the outcome of an ignorant eye? What is the outcome of an ignorant ear? Ignorant nose, ignorant tongue, ignorant body, and ignorant mind. What is the outcome? It is also ignorant. So that means when we open our eyes, we don't see the truth. We are deluded. On the spot. It doesn't take time. When that combination happens, when the eye, visual object, and the consciousness happens, when these three things come together on the spot, the stream of defilements start to flow into our life. And that is explained very well here. So, and then after that, the feeling, craving, clinging, arranging of karma, rebirth, aging and death, and suffering. So that's the amazing discovery of the Buddha. The suffering is arranged not far away, not in an invisible world. The suffering is arranged right here when we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, when we touch something, when we think something. And that is also a beautiful discovery, a good news, because if the suffering is arranged right here, not far away, then the solution also must be very close, not far away, not in the hands of some invisible creature, some invisible person, or some faraway world or faraway place. No, the solution also must be very close. So that's what we are going to learn in this sutta. So what happens? So if everything starts with the contact, what happens when Buddha asks here, Buddha teaches a Dhamma here, what happens when that contact takes place? If you can use your skills so that that stream of defilements will be controlled to some degree and completely handled by your mindfulness and wisdom and the Noble Eightfold Path that is developed inside you. And if that contact becomes the final outcome and nothing more, Ettachate Mālukyaputta ditta sutta muta viññāta besu dhammesu ditte dittamattang bhavisati. When it comes to things that are to be seen, heard, thought, and known, in the seen will be merely the seen. Ditte dittamattang bhavisati. When you see something, it ends there. Nothing is arranged further. But if that happens, sute sutamattam bhavisati. If you hear something, what if it stops there? It doesn't help that your hearing process. If it does not help for the accumulation of new defilements and arranging of new karma, what if that happens? Mute mutamattam bhavisati. When you smell something, if you can stop the arranging of the defilements further, there are three things under muta. When you smell something and also when you taste something. Muta, the Pali word, is used for three things: smelling, tasting, and touching. So when you taste something, that means when the contact happens, when the tongue contact happens, union of tongue, taste, and the tongue conscious. When that happens, if the arranging of defilements is stopped, arranging of new karma is stopped. What if that happens? Viññāte viññātamattam bhavisati. When you think something, three things come together: union of mind, thought, and the mind consciousness. If that is not, if that happening, that union of three things does not lead to the arranging of new karma, new defilements, practice such a path. That is the advice of the Buddha. Practice such a path. Ditte dittamattang bhavisati. I will develop my spiritual path so that no more arranging of defilements and arranging of karma will take place. Practice such a path. Sute sutamattam bhavisati. Mute mutamattam bhavisati. Viññāte viññātamattam bhavisati. Do you understand? That is the deep meaning here. And then, if that happens, if your mindfulness, awareness, samatha, vipassana, the Noble Eightfold Path, all these things are fully developed to such a degree, yathokote Mālukyaputta ditta sutta muta viññātabbesu dhammesu ditte dittamatam bhavisati sute sutamatam bhavisati mute mutamatam bhavisati viññāte viññātamatam bhavisati. Then, as I said, if your mindfulness, awareness, wisdom, samatha, vipassana, Noble Eightfold Path, and all these the amazing elements of the deep Dhamma are fully practiced, fully followed, fully developed, tato tvang Mālukyaputta natena. You won't be by that. That means there won't be any new arranging of 5 aggregates for a new life. And one time somebody asked this question: being is called, right? Being, being, individual. What is the meaning of being? Why do we call about a being? Sometimes we talk about There is no being, there is no person here, there are only causes and effects. There are only arising and passing away. You know, when we learn about like deep Dhamma like that, some people question, so why do we talk about a being then? And Buddha very clearly explained, being comes to be. Being is known because this individual is fettered by craving. As long as this individual who travels in this samsara is fettered by craving, tanha, towards 5 aggregates of clinging, towards the form, to the physical body, towards feeling, perception, volitions, and consciousness. As long as the craving exists towards these 5 aggregates, there is a being. That individual is called a being, satta. Once that craving is abandoned, that notion of satta is dismantled. It no longer functions because the craving is gone. And that will be only used for communication purposes. Like we call Sariputta Bante, Moggallana Bante, we give names. And even Arahants talk I, me, mine, but the ordinary recognition behind that being is no longer valid. It's only valid as long as the craving continues. So here, when it becomes ditte dittamatta, when there is no more arranging of defilements or karma, after the contact happens, the craving is gone. Remember, the stream of defilements is cut off. The Noble Eightfold Path has been developed to such an extent. So then, even though that person is living, that person is not categorized into that the ordinary recognition of beings category. Even though we tell that this arahant, that arahant, it's only for communication purposes because the craving is gone. You won't be by that. You won't be recognized by seeing, by hearing, by smelling, by tasting, by touching, by thinking. Tato tuang Mālukyaputtasutta. And the Blessed One teaches, Mālukyaputta, if your Noble Eightfold Path is developed to such an extent, you are not stuck there. You are not stuck. You are not stuck in seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, tangible. You are freed from there. Yatotvang Mālukyaputta natena. You, when you are not by that, Yatotvang Mālukyaputta na tatta. Tatotvang Mālukyaputta ne vidha. So then, our existence, the present existence, past existence, future existence, this existence comes to be with the support of ignorance and craving. So when both ignorance and craving are abandoned in this very life, it's not fair to say that you exist, right? It's not fair to say, because existence is always recognized with ignorance and craving. Avijja nivarananam tanha sanyojananam satta. The being is always known like this, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. We cannot talk about a sansaric being, a being who is stuck in this sansaric journey. You cannot talk such a being without talking about ignorance and craving. If we talk about a sansaric being, we always talk about that being with the connection of ignorance and craving. So what happens if a being is completely freed from that ignorance and craving in this very life? He is not categorized into this ordinary reckoning of a being. That is why tato tuang Mālukyaputta vidha. Then you won't be in this world, because this world is a part of the existence. And when the being's existence comes to an halt, comes to an extinguishment, you can't include that being into the world anymore. You know that Arahant, it doesn't mean that the Arahant disappears as soon as he attains the enlightenment. It's not the meaning here. But if we talk about a world, one day somebody asked the Buddha about the world. World is known, Bhante. What is the meaning of world? And Buddha said, world means I and the visual objects. World means ear and the sounds. World means nose and the smells. World means the tongue and the tastes. World means the body and the tangible. World means the mind and the thought. See the amazing teaching of the Buddha. Can you think about a single thing as the world? Okay, you can think, okay, I'm thinking about the world now. If you think about the world, you have to either think about a visual object seen by the eyes, or a sound heard by the ear, or a smell smelled by the nose, or a flavor tasted by the tongue, or a tangible sensed by the body, or a thought contemplated by the mind. That's all we can think about. So the world means this combination. Combination of what? Combination of internal sense faculty, external object, and the consciousness. That is the world. So think about the perfect answer given by the Buddha. World means nothing else. So then that world is created by the craving. If the craving is the bridge, the craving connects the internal sense organ with the external object. That's how the world is created. When that bridge is gone, when that bridge is destroyed, that's why we say the enlightened one, the liberated monks are freed from the world. Before their final extinguishing, they are living, right? They eat, they walk, they talk, but we still say about them, they are freed from the world. That means the bridge is destroyed. There is no the bridge to create the connection between the internal sense organ and the external object. That connection is no longer exists. So we call them, they are freed from the world. That's the meaning here. You won't be in this world. That's the meaning. That's why I explained it in detail, because otherwise you will think, okay, then it doesn't mean that when somebody attains enlightenment, that person disappears, because it says you won't be in this world. No, it's the disappearance of bridge that connects you to the connects the internal sense organ to the external object. Tatotvang Mālukyaputta nevid nahuram. You won't be in the world beyond. You are already escaped from all the worlds, even from this world. You are not included in that world anymore. So let alone the next world. How the next how is the next world arranged? It's through this bridge of craving. When there is this bridge of craving, when we see something, there's the union of eye, visual object, and the consciousness, which is called the eye contact. When eye contact happens, what comes next? Okay. Chakkuncha padicca rupecha uppajjati chakku viññāna. Dependent on eye and the visual object, eye consciousness arises. Tinnang sangati passo. Union of the three things is eye contact. Passa paccaya vedana, the Buddha teaches. Dependent on the contact, feeling arises. Vedana paccaya tanha, dependent on the feeling, craving arises. Tanha paccaya upadana, dependent on craving, clinging arises. Upadana paccaya bhava, dependent on clinging, arranging of karma takes place. Bhava paccaya jati, based on the karma, rebirth arises. So who is creating the next world? Who is creating the next world? This process. Now, when that process is completely unlinked through the cessation of dependent origination, paticca samuppada nirodho, the link is unlinked now. There's no arranging of craving, no clinging, no arranging of karma. Why? Salayatana nirodha phassa nirodha. With the cessation of six sense bases comes the cessation of contact. Phassa nirodha vedana nirodha. With the cessation of contact comes the cessation of feeling. Vedana nirodha tanha nirodha. With the cessation of feeling, craving ceases. With the tanha nirodha upadana nirodha. With the cessation of craving, clinging ceases. Upadana nirodha bhava nirodha. With the cessation of clinging, arranging of karma ceases. Bhava nirodha jati nirodha. With the cessation of arranging of karma, rebirth ceases. There is no more rebirth. Freed from the world. Freed from the world means jati nirodha jara marana. With the cessation of rebirth comes the cessation of aging, comes the cessation of sickness, comes the cessation of pandemics, epidemics, everything, no sickness, no diseases, nothing. With the cessation of rebirth comes the cessation of death. That is the end of death. We cannot end, no one can end death by committing suicide, by damaging the body, torturing the body, harming the body. No. With the cessation of rebirth comes the cessation of death. Think about this profound discovery of the Buddha. Who can reject this? This is applied to every being in this existence. Not only for Buddhists, not only for humans. This is applied to all the powerful Brahmas, powerful gods, heavenly beings, animals, small creatures, insects, cats, dogs, our pets, for all the beings. This is applied. So here, when the bridge is gone, when the bridge is destroyed, Buddha says, Mālukyaputta, you won't be in the world beyond. You won't be in the next world. You won't go to the next world. Isn't that very clear now? How that next world thing is ceased. Na ubhaya mantarena, Buddha teaches, Mālukyaputta, if your Noble Eightfold Path is practiced like this, you won't be in between the two. What is the between the two? You won't be between this world and the other world. You won't be in this world, you won't be in the next world, you won't be in between this world and the other world. Between means you won't be, there won't be any arranging of craving. Esevanto dukkha sati, just this is the end of suffering. How amazing this. This is the scientific, the true scientific discovery. Nothing else. And when Buddha encouraged Mālukyaputtasutta to follow the Noble Eightfold Path, to achieve that freedom from this world, freedom from suffering, to achieve the true peace, true liberation. Mālukyaputtasutta was very happy. He was so excited because he invited the Buddha to teach him the Dhamma in brief, and Buddha with limitless compassion accepted his invitation, and the Blessed One taught him an amazing Dhamma. So Mālukyaputtasutta was so excited, and he said this, Bhante, I realized the meaning of this brief Dhamma. This is how I understand the detailed meaning of the Buddha's brief statement. So Mālukyaputtasutta, like while sitting there, while listening to the brief Dhamma, even though Mālukyaputtasutta was an elderly monk, advanced in years, maybe 80 years, 100 years, who knows? And those days, some monks even lived 420 years, right? So even though Bhante was an elderly monk, he was, as he thought, he was capable of understanding the detailed meaning of this Dhamma. And in the next part of the sutta, Mālukyaputtasutta explains how he understood, as a monk, he definitely was contemplating on these teachings for a long time, for many years. So he can apply all the other teachings to this brief statement made by the Buddha. So with that knowledge, Mālukyaputtasutta explains how the stream of defilements take place and how the bridge is destroyed, so that there won't be any new arrangement of craving, defilements, or karma. So two sides. Not the life of a person who does not follow the Noble Eightfold Path, and the last part of the sutta is about the life of a person who follows the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so if you have questions, now is the time to ask questions. First, can everybody say sadhu to be grateful to the knowledge of the Supreme Buddha? And the Supreme Buddha sacrificed many lives in the past, sacrificed all the wealth the Buddha to be had, sacrificed so many things, kingdoms, and he donated wives and children. He donated everything. He donated his the parts of the body. He donated his entire life in uncountable times when he was fulfilling the perfections, the paramitas, in order to understand the truth of life and to be free from this suffering of the world, and also to help others to achieve that true solution, the only solution, true freedom. So the Buddha to be worked so hard, extraordinary way. So we should be very grateful to that enlightenment of the Buddha. So we say sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And thank you, Bhante, for teaching us.
Linda, you have a question?
Yes, Bhante. Oh, sorry, Bhante. I was just contemplating of this sutta, Bhante. In order to achieve that state of ditte ditta matang bhavisati and the sutte sutta matang bhavisati and so on.
Okay,
Bhante,
so let me add something here.
yes, Bhante.
We have read in the past, we have read some books, and we have heard that some people would come to us and say that they misunderstood this brief statement without studying the detailed meaning of it, which comes after that brief statement. So that brief statement, that paragraph became very famous among meditation masters and people who like the deep Dhamma. It became very famous, but unfortunately, the next part of the sutta was not commonly talked about and discussed. So some people misinterpreted this ditte dittamattang with just superficial translation of the word of those phrases. So that means when they the way some of the people explain the ditte dittamattang is that during meditation you do kind of a chanting or a mantra. If you see something, it's only seeing. If you hear something during meditation, you contemplated hearing. But that's not the meaning here. Now you already understood the deep meaning behind that. It's not about repeating the word seeing, because ditte dittamattang, the raw translation of that phrase is that it's only seeing on what is seen. So then the people started repeating the word seeing when they see something. When they hear something during meditation, they used to think, okay, hearing. And when they smell something, hearing, smelling. And when they feel something in their body, they use this phrase, sensation, feeling, something like that. But it's not just like that. It's about a deep meaning behind. How to do that what is seen only seen. What is seen, when you see something, it stops there. And we learned about that in details. How to stop that is through the Noble Eightfold Path, it's through the sharpened wisdom, it's through the practice of Samatha and Vipassana, it's through the Noble Eightfold Path, and by practicing those things, by controlling the defilements, and by breaking that bridge, but by destroying the bridge of craving. That is how eventually this truth appears. What is the truth? When you see something, it ends there. So it comes through the practice of Noble Eightfold Path, not by just saying a mantra, seeing only seeing, hearing only hearing, like that. So I just wanted to add that part as well, because it was a misinterpretation of that very famous paragraph. Nothing happens if we repeat that word, seeing, seeing, hearing, hearing.
So I am thinking, Bhante, in order to achieve that state, then what should have like very sharp wisdom, very sharp mindfulness, Bhante, because in the link of independent origination, it says because of the contact, then we cannot avoid the feeling, perception, and volitions will always there as soon as the contact happens, because contact is, Supreme Buddha says, it's like a flayed cow. So, but in this sutta, it means in this sutta, when we contemplate and using various methods, like Bhante said, Noble Eightfold Path and other methods, that after we exercise those methods, then with the sharp mindfulness and sharp wisdom, we can actually stop from the contact to the feeling, like we can stop the feeling to arise.
No,
not
we
like
cannot
that.
stop the feelings to arise. What we are going to stop is the ignorance and craving.
Okay.
That's what is going to be stopped.
So the feelings, Bhante,
in the beginning, it's going to be weakened, controlled, handled well, and over time, through the practice, it's going to be fully abandoned, the craving and the ignorance. We are not abandoning feeling, we are not avoiding feeling, no. Only the ignorance and craving associated with the entire links of dependent origination.
Okay, so Bhante, we after the contact we still feel, Bhante, but we feel
without ignorance and
craving and ignorance. Yes,
yeah.
Bhante.
In the beginning, we cannot feel a feeling without ignorance and craving. In the beginning, we cannot feel such a feeling which is liberated from ignorance and craving. But in the beginning, we develop mindfulness and wisdom to understand this process. What is happening? What is happening when we see something, when we hear something? And it's a gradual process. And little by little, these elements of defilements will be low and low, and eventually eradicated fully.
Yes, Bhante, very, very clear.
Okay, it happens through gradual training.
Yes, Bhante.
For example, let's say before we start practicing such a profound path, let's say when we hear something, okay, somebody insults us, some bad words, we may get angry, we try to fight with that person, or we want to kill that person. That's what happens when a killing happening. In some cases, is because somebody said something bad and the other person got mad and then used a weapon and they killed the person. So in our lives also, before we start contemplating this way, the same thing happens, okay? And then let's think about how this Dhamma practice changes. Okay, after you started associating with Kalyana Mittas, listening to this deep Dhamma, now you try to understand the dependent origination, and now you contemplate on how things arise, how things pass away, and now you have an idea about the danger of defilements, danger of the hatred, anger, and all these things, right? And next time, maybe after many years of the practice, you will realize that a transformation takes place in your life. Next time, when somebody insults you, right? Rather than giving rise to the thoughts of killing that person or destroying that person, you would start contemplating on the dependent origination. I heard a sound. Unpleasant feeling has arisen. The reason for that unpleasant feeling is the contact, right? So at the beginning, that is how it happens. There is a change. That is a change. Your ignorance is not fully abandoned at that time. Your craving is not fully abandoned. You are not freed from the dependent origination, but a transformation has taken place. That is the meaning of gradual training. Okay, Harry?
Bante. First, I'd like to thank Bante for explaining and elaborating. Yeah, it's very deep. Eh? Seeing for seeing. Okay, but anyway, Bante, thank you for that. Now, I have a question here, which is, I don't know if it's logical, but we always say that anybody who is born disabled is kind of misfortunate, right? But
Who said that? Who said that?
I mean, many people, I mean, from lay people, layman's people sometimes say, okay, this person was born blind. And so
No,
it's
we can
unfortunate.
say everybody has been born with craving, with defilements. Okay, we can say that. Also, we should say human beings are very fortunate. It is very difficult to be born as a human being. You need powerful good karma to be born as a human being. So in that sense, all the human beings are very fortunate because they have gained a very rare human life. Right? We can use those kind of statements, but it's not right to say that everybody is bad. Or
yes. Now,
no.
Bante, yeah, my question therefore is, based on dependent origination, okay, then we should say that somebody who is born blind or disabled, for example, so he's blind, so he couldn't see. So he's got eyes but couldn't see, and there's no eye contact, and there's no feelings, and there's no craving. Then this kind of people, disabled people, on the contrary, they are fortunate enough, and they could be easier for them to escape or to
No, there is no connection.
from
No
the
connection between blindness and the realizing the truth.
because they couldn't see, right? So there's
no, it's not the realization is not coming through not seeing things. The realization comes through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. Because the Noble Eightfold Path is the path leading to the end of suffering. Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada is the Noble Eightfold Path. So we should understand very clearly, realization does not happen through not seeing, through not hearing, through not smelling, through not tasting, through not feeling, through not cognizing. Realization only happens through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path.
but
whoever can practice the Noble Eightfold Path, that person can attain the stages of enlightenment.
somehow, Bante, that also helps, right? Because if
No,
somebody couldn't see,
no.
there's
What helps is associating with Kalyana Mittas, listening to the Dhamma, wise consideration, and practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Sappurisa Sansevo, Saddhamma Savana, Yoniso Manasikara, Dhammarudhamma Paripada. Those are the supporting factors to attain the first stage of enlightenment. Otherwise, we all can damage our eyes and we all can become blind if that takes us to the stages of enlightenment. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Bante. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu, sadhu.
Ray, you can ask the last question.
Okay, so pleasure, pain, praise and blame, gain and loss, status, non-status. On dependent origination, would it only come from craving, or is there more parts of the dependent origination that would come from?
You mean those 8 vicissitudes of life?
Right.
The ups and downs of life?
Right. So would they just be on craving on dependent origination, or are there other parts of dependent origination that they would be part of? Or are they even part of craving on the dependent origination?
Okay, there's a very simple answer for that. The ups and downs of life is nothing to do with dependent origination. Ups and downs of life is a natural law in the world. How do you understand it? Yeah,
Yes.
How do you understand it? Even for a person who is fully freed from craving, is not freed from ups and downs of life.
Okay, thank you.
Think about the Buddha. Think about the Buddha. Buddha freed from craving at the age of 35. Buddha attained enlightenment means he achieved the freedom from craving at the age of 35. Buddha lived until 80. So he lived for 45 years as an enlightened one. How many blames? How many criticism? How many attempts to kill the Buddha? See the ups and downs the Buddha faced?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Bante.
No problem. Yeah, so please understand how to face the ups and downs of life without damaging the peace inside, and it's a natural law. Everybody has to face ups and downs of life. Even ordinary people have to face ups and downs of life. Enlightened people have to face ups and downs of life. Only difference is ordinary people are troubled by ups and downs of life. Enlightened people are not troubled by ups and downs of life. Nothing happens to their inner peace. So may all of us have the opportunity to attain that inner peace, which is not troubled by anything in the world. Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.